Has the United States officially recognized that the cyber attack was caused by North Korea?
Well, the U.S. government continues to actively investigate this attack. The FBI has the lead for this investigation, and we will provide an update at the appropriate time on attribution. Let me also note, since you gave me the opportunity, we have offered Sony Pictures Entertainment support and assistance in response to this attack, and we would as we would for any private sector entity who suffered a similar attack. And I also would stress that given the destructive efforts or effects of this attack, we're treating this as a national security matter, and as such, members of the President's national security team have been in regular meetings regarding this attack.
When one looks at this, is there any indication yet that any other country was involved in this other than, I mean, could it have been that any other country was enlisted to help with this?
I'm just not going to speculate on that because there's an ongoing investigation happening now.
Could I follow up on that,
Sure.
please? You mentioned that you're treating it as a national security matter. If you make the determination that elements of the North Korean government were involved, could this be seen as almost as an act of war against you? And what kind of measures could you be contemplating, even if you're not saying that it's that, to retaliate or to take a response?
Well, I'm not going to put new labels on it. As is true with any national security matter, we will always consider a range of options to shape our response, and certainly that's part of what the national security team would discuss. But given we haven't even announced specifics about the findings of an investigation, I'm not going to announce, and I'm not sure we will announce what range of options we're considering until we make a decision if we're going to proceed with an option.
Could they include something like more sanctions, or are there so many sanctions on North Korea anyway that there isn't much room?
There are a range, as you know. I'm not going to put things on the table or off the table at this point in time, given we haven't even made a determination yet.
Jen, given that you guys have said that you respect the right of Sony to stop, to withdraw, to stop the release of this movie, I understand that, but do you think this sets a bad precedent? I mean, it's already put one other movie has already been sort of withdrawn from production that had to do with North Korea. Do you think this might lead to further kind of attacks of this nature being carried out if people see that it's been successful?
Well, I wouldn't put it in those terms. I will say that, Elliot, we, of course, are aware of their announcement regarding the interview. The United States will always stand for and support artists and entertainers' rights to produce and distribute content of their own choosing. And certainly we also support the right of companies, including companies in the movie industry, to make their own decision. We have no involvement in such decisions, as you know, and we're extremely concerned about any attempt to threaten or limit artists' freedoms of speech or of expression. And our belief is certainly that that value, whether it's freedom of reporting, freedom of speech by individuals, freedom of expression in artists and artistic content, is something that is not only a value for the United States, but one that should be universally, and so that's what we support.
Sure.
Go ahead.
But you don't have any concern though that this kind of thing might be happening with more frequency in the future as a result
Well,
of
I
this?
think it's important for everybody to understand, or remember, I should say, because I think you do all understand this, that there have been a range of cybersecurity concerns we've had about access to certain companies, even government information, or trying to get into government information over the course of time. This isn't a new phenomenon. It's one of the reasons why federal government departments and agencies work with the private sector and entities to bolster their cyber defenses and mitigate disruptions they may suffer and investigate intrusions that have occurred. And that's something that's ongoing, but I wouldn't draw a connection between the two. Go ahead.
You just stated that it was because of the effects of this action that the United States government is classifying it as a national security matter. Besides Angelina Jolie's bruised feelings or the cancellation of the release of a film, what effects do you have in mind?
Well, I think we take any cybersecurity intrusion seriously, because our own cybersecurity is something that we have seen an uptick in concern about over the course of the last couple of years. And what I mean is that cybersecurity is a national security issue. And any time there's a big hack of a major company or a in industry, that's something we have to take a look at and see what the implications are of it.
And you mentioned an offer of support and assistance to Sony, as you say, has been offered to other private firms in similar circumstances. What does that support and assistance consist of exactly?
Well, in addition to determining, continuing to work with Sony on who is responsible, they're making sure, the FBI is making sure that they are sharing all the information they can about this attack with Sony and other potential targets. We're also working with DHS and other agencies to disseminate that information as widely as possible. The FBI is providing victim assistance information to Sony Pictures personnel made available through the U.S. government and private vendors, and is also providing briefings to Sony Pictures employees, including informational resources and tips to help safeguard employees' own records.
So you said this was offered. Has Sony accepted this offer?
Well, that's an ongoing. Those pieces that I mentioned are ongoing efforts we're working on.
Can I ask you, in addition to the hack, there's been threats against theaters. Where is the investigation on that, and have you tied that to a malicious state actor as well?
Well, Brad, I mentioned this yesterday, but I'm not aware of it changing, that of course we take every threat seriously. We've certainly been looking into those. We've not seen any credible intelligence to back those up.
Okay, and if similar threats or these threats are tied to a state, would you consider that behavior indicative of a state sponsor of terrorism? If a state was making threats of attacks in theaters in the United States?
Well, again, we don't think there's credible intelligence here, so I'm just not going to speculate on that.
Is what happened to Sony an act of terrorism?
We haven't even determined the cause here, James. I'm not going to put a new label on it.
Can I just say, I mean, without determining the cause, if you were to connect this to a state, the hack, is that something that would make you reassess someone's status not on a state sponsor of terrorism list?
I'm not going to speculate on that, Brad. Let's see how this investigation completes itself. Go ahead.
Without getting into the specifics of who perpetrated this attack, how does the lack of diplomatic relations with a country like North Korea, but we could be talking about Iran or who else? Cuba, for that matter, right now. How does the lack of diplomatic relations affect your options for dealing with a country who is accused of doing something like this? I mean, without the ability to withdraw an ambassador or declare people PNG, I mean, how does that affect what the State Department, what the United States is able to do to punish a country?
Well, I'm not going to get into the range of options, but obviously they're not limited to PNGing or removing an ambassador, so I'll leave it at that.
And have you been in touch with the Swedish embassy in their capacity as a protecting power on this issue?
I can check. I don't have any information on that.